1966 was a year just before the great physicist by the name of J. Robert Oppenheimer committed suicide. He was part of the project called the Los Alamos Project, who built the first atom bomb. So he was part of groundbreaking technology, groundbreaking invention. What he helped to build would stop the Second World War, would deal a death blow to Japan. And yet when they spoke to him just that year before he committed suicide, he said this: "I'm a complete failure." He looked back on all his achievements and saw them as meaningless. He was asked about them and he said, "They leave on the tongue only the taste of ashes." So many people have come to the middle of their lives and felt that it was meaningless. Why? Because meaning in life is very important. If you don't have meaning in your life, what's the reason for being alive? So I want to speak to you this morning about finding meaning in a meaningless world. Finding meaning in a meaningless world. Because it's so important that you don't just exist, and that you believe in Jesus, but that your life has got meaning on a day-to-day basis. And I want to give you some principles this morning, 5 key headings, but 4 things that will stand out to us this morning. Are you ready? The first thing, if you're going to bring meaning or find meaning in a meaningless world, is discover God's spiritual purposes behind earth's empty monotony. There are spiritual purposes behind earth's empty monotony. The cycles and routines, the getting up and going to sleep, the sun comes up, it goes down, the water goes into the sky, rain comes down, it runs into the sea. Solomon looked at the every day you go to work, you come home, you go to bed, you get up, you go to work, you go to bed, and then you get old, and then what? And he says, but hang on a minute, behind all that, there are God's purposes. What are God's purposes? Because life only really has meaning when there's purpose, isn't that true? Without any purpose in your life, there's no meaning. And the key thought this morning that I want you to understand about life, we're going to have 4 key thoughts, is that everything in life is a test. You want to give meaning to your life, you need to understand that there is a purpose behind your life, and one of the purposes of your life is that it's a test. God tests us and trains us in this life for the next one. 200 times in the Bible you read about trials, temptations, and tests. And we need to pass the tests of life. Do you know that sometimes God even will withdraw from you so that he can test you to see how you will respond when you don't feel he's around? In 2 Chronicles 32, when the ambassadors arrived from Babylon to ask about the remarkable events that had taken place in the land, God withdrew from Hezekiah in order to test him to see what was really in his heart. You see, life is about tests. It's not just about happiness and pleasure and things. It's about tests. You see, life is a developmental plan, not a possessions plan. When you understand that part of life is a test, the cycles of life begin to make sense. Every day I get up and I have to go to work and I go to bed. Life has meaning. Why? Because God is watching and he's working in my life. Number 2, life isn't about ownership, it's about stewardship. We think life is about owning as much as possible. It consists of stewardship. Are you with me this morning? And that's why we feel like Solomon. I hated life. It's unfair. They've got more than me. I have to leave it behind, he said. That's the worst thing. I work for all this and my kids squander it. Me, mine, what I own. But we've been entrusted with something. We don't own it. And here's the thing. Here's the key thought this morning. Everything in life is a trust. Not only is it a test, it's a trust. It's not yours. You've been trusted with something. God's given you children. He's given you a country. He's given you a church, gifts, abilities. They've been entrusted to you, a career. Life is what we do with God's stuff, not what we do with our stuff. Are you hearing me today? If you're looking for meaning in your stuff, you're barking up the wrong tree. It will never bring meaning into your life. It'll bring a little bit of temporal pleasure. That's why you mustn't hold on to things too tightly. So life is a test, but it's also a trust. Stewardship, 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 2. Now it is required that those who've been given a trust must prove faithful. The third way to find meaning in a meaningless world is this: don't chase what doesn't satisfy and what doesn't last. We spend our lives chasing these things, frenetic about them, as if they're going to answer our problems. Food, clothing, possessions, they're valuable and they're necessary, but they really are just non-permanent tools. Isn't that true? So here's the way I want you to think about it. Everything in life is temporary. Not only is it a test, not only is it a trust, it is temporary. So why would you chase things that are temporary as if you're looking for some kind of permanence in your life? Solomon found that everything that was temporary did not satisfy. Solomon had it all, but it didn't mean anything. Number 4, quickly write this down. Don't expect satisfaction and meaning from the creation only. People are looking for created things to give them meaning. Solomon says that everything under the sun can't give you meaning. In Romans it tells us that they worship the creation. Don't end up looking to the creation. People have become so absorbed with the creation that they're not living for the creator. Isn't that true? And number 5, because the time is running out, is true meaning comes when we worship God, not ourselves. You say, well, worship God? What are you talking about? We're talking about meaning. Yep. Do you know that all of our world is about self-worship? Just have a look at most people's Instagram account. You see, here's the key thought, church. I want you to write this down. Don't miss this. Everything in life is about true worship. It's a test. It's a trust. It's temporary. It's about true worship. Are you getting the T's this morning? True. When you don't put God first and you put yourself first, everything goes wrong. See, when you are on the throne, when it's all about you and what you earn and your rights and what you're getting or not getting, you'll be miserable. But when it's all about Him and He gets the glory and He's most important and He's testing me and He's trusting me and everything on this world is temporary, suddenly it doesn't matter if the world's falling apart because my life's got meaning.